Good evening, everyone, and welcome on behalf of Crossroads Cultural Center. My name is Ventura, and I'm the CIO for Unilever North America, and I will moderate this event tonight. First of all, thank you for coming. Tonight we will talk about work. So, work is indeed the activity which takes most of our time during the day and during our lifespan. And no matter what we do, what job we do, we have expectation at work. We have a passion for what we do. We have ambition to learn and to grow from a professional point of view. We have the desire to be recognized, that what we do is noticed and appreciated. We want to leave a mark in the world, and we want to do something great, something for which we can be remembered. We also have a need for financial stability and welfare for us and for our families. And I think these points, from my point of view, are really genuine desires that we all have. Genuine desires that express the nature of who we are. In time, though, these genuine desires fall under the attack of the ideology of our society that pushes us to reduce this desire. In particular, pushing us to reduce what we are to what we earn or to our job title, which is a function of what we earn. And this is what I would call it, the reduction of who we are to what we can achieve. There is also a second risk that we run in the workplace, that is that we are constantly asked to push the limits and to deliver more with less. We're given more and more boundaries and more constraints to deliver what we need to deliver. That sounds familiar, right?
Sounds familiar.
And to do this, we often take directions that otherwise we wouldn't take. And we often justify this with a greater good. This challenges an even more subtle need of ours, which is the unity of the person. I think that what we want in life and at work is unity and not balance. So, having experienced these challenges, I believe that there are two things that can help us to stay at the level of our true desire at work in time. First of all, a sense of purpose. A purpose that goes beyond what we do and shapes the way we work. That's what I would call ideal. And secondly, we need friends and witnesses that show us and remind us a way to enjoy work that can last in time. So tonight we're very lucky because we have with us two amazing guests and friends. So on my left, Jostein. He is the general manager for ice cream, beverage, and foods for North America. And prior to this role, Jostein was the CEO of Ben & Jerry's for 8 years. Ben & Jerry's is a very iconic brand that most of you will recognize and appreciate. So welcome Jostein. On my right, Nuno TELES. Nuno is the president of Diageo for the US. Diageo is a large beverage company with also very iconic brands like Guinness, Smirnoff, and several other spirits that I'm sure we sometime indulge on. And prior to this role, Nuno was the chief marketing officer for Heineken. So thank you and welcome Nuno. So, last night somebody asked me if you guys were going to bring samples.
Yeah, big miss.
Big miss on our side. Okay, so let's start, and I will start from Jostein. So, I've known you for a while now, almost 2 years, and I'm very struck by the passion you have in everything you do, and by the way that you keep that passion not only when things go well, but also during bumpy times. And in a recent company event a couple of weeks ago, you said, in challenges there are opportunities. So personally, I recognize that approaching work in that way can really help, first of all, learning all the time from the situation, but also can keep the passion intact and most importantly can motivate and give energy to the people around you, which is what I see you doing on a daily basis. So first question for you is if you've always worked in this way, with this great passion that you have, or if you learned that in time, and if you did, what is that shape that learning in the way you work?
Oh, tough first question. Good evening. We had a bet coming down here. I said it's going to be about 4 people.
I forgot to say that.
And he said no, it's going to be about 40. So I lost that one. I did say my colleague Nuno was going to arrive at 8 exactly for the 8 o'clock start, and I won that one. But I must say it feels a bit weird to talk about work at 8 o'clock on a Friday. But you know, I'm game if you're game, and you clearly are. So that's impressive in its own right. So to come to your question, I think there's a few things. There's yes, I have I have always approached work in that way. I've always gone to work every day. As I said, be ready to be fired every day, because that gives you the freedom to be who you are and to do what you think is right. And so I started very early on. Actually, I learned that the hard way because somebody wanted to fire me. After about a year. So I said, oh well, that wouldn't be too painful. They didn't, and everything went well because I'd been right and he was wrong. But but it started there, and I think that's one thing. The second thing, of course, is you choose who you work for, and I do think that working for an organization which aligns with your own purpose and values, at least to a certain extent, is really, really critical to be able to have the impact and live with your own moral values and your own ethics every day. So I've been very fortunate that, in all the moves around the world, and I've probably worked in about 30 countries by now, I've had this opportunity to be in a company that shares my values and has values that go beyond just selling more stuff and making more money. Now, I think I have refined this as I've gone along the journey from a young analyst through to running a division. But and I think that the purpose journey was really critical in that, and that having an organization with a purpose, and Unilever has a purpose around sustainability and impacting the world positively. Ben & Jerry's has an enormous purpose around social justice and environmental justice. So being part of that big thing, but actually unlocking your own personal purpose and understanding what it is and what it does for you and how you can use that energy and that determination is probably what allows me to come in every day and hit the challenges. So for me personally, I'm going to do the purpose and then we can hand it back. But for me, it was very interesting because I did a lot of, we had a lot of, we've taken all of our senior managers through the personal purpose journey. And it's a 1 week course where we really go deep. And all of these assessments, I'd always come out that my relationship with risk and ambiguity was very different from all my colleagues. I'm like way off the map on risk tolerance and ability to feel comfortable about ambiguity. So that was one of those things where it was like, oh, you actually, when there's a fire, you run right into it. You don't step away from it. So that's not normal. But when I got that into my purpose and I recognized that I can use that to positively impact the world, it really helped me when the challenges hit. I got a little voice on my shoulder that says, hey, get in there. Let's see what we can do with this. How do we turn this into a positive? How do we impact the world for the better by resolving this? And you always do that with your team members. So how do you have people thriving through ambiguity and paradoxes when it really matters for them? So that's my purpose.
Thank you. Nuno.
Yeah.
Same question.
Oh, do you remember the question?
Actually, we have obviously a preparation for tonight. So first of all, good evening or night to everyone. It's already late. it's time to normally to shift from beer to spirits. When I start losing market share, and when I see, just a correction, I'm responsible for the beer business, not for Diageo overall. So you know, it's not that I don't want to get there, but not the reality right now. But in terms of purpose and what I did was I reflected in terms of what I wanted to share with you all tonight. And it's obviously easier said than done, right? So, and since we had our dinner, I have been thinking about, like, you know, sometimes it's easy to say this and that, and it's different when you are confronted with daily issues, right? Or daily crises at work, you know. Never, never, ever a day goes by exactly the way you think, right? So, and you are confronted with people having issues, a guy that you were not expecting that is aiming to quit the company, or someone that has an issue here and there. So I would like to share first that when I started my career 25 years ago, I had this relationship with work that actually stayed the same throughout all my life. So, and I recently went to DC for a graduation of a friend of mine, and obviously you guys know that in the US there's always these exciting speeches, and someone was talking about we should not die trying to reach the summit. The journey should be the destination, not the summit itself, and the purpose should be the path. Like, you know, like the choices. And that resonated a lot with me, because it's not so much what we achieve is enjoying the journey. You know, like enjoying the everyday and the things that we are confronted with. And that is kind of the first thing that I would like to share with you. When I go back to my early days, I had the option to do an internship at Unilever, you know, the company that these two gentlemen work today. Which I loved. Like, I was really, really in love with that type of experience. Then I had also the opportunity to do an internship in an investment bank, which I hated. So I arrived at like 8 o'clock in the morning, everybody was already there working. And I felt like, you know, this is not that fun, you know, like I was doing much more interesting things in my internship at Unilever. And at the end, we basically had, I was confronted with a pressure from my brothers that obviously wanted me to go to the investment banking because it was more status and like you are going to do more interesting stuff. Also socially, more pressure to have that recognition. But my heart felt that the right choice would be to go to the thing that I really wanted. So I ended up obviously following my heart, which made all the difference. And I ask myself how many times today I really follow my intuition rather than what I see around me and the pressure I have around me. So that would be the first idea in terms of purpose. And the second one is, the risk, the temptation to follow the risk. I also felt that early days in my career. So I tell you just a quick story because it's always easier to tell stories. So I was launching a shampoo fighting against Procter & Gamble. Procter obviously had a lot of ammunition, and I was like, you know, when you are in a small country, and this was in Portugal, you get all the TV commercial and the packaging done by the smart guys in the UK, right? So you get like everything done, and you just implement. And I was asking myself, what can I do more? Like, you know, how can I add value to everything that I already got from the center? And I ended up talking with a couple of magazines in Portugal. One was Elle magazine, and they accepted to endorse the shampoo as the best shampoo that would nourish the roots. And actually, if you guys don't know, the hair is already dead, and the only living part is the roots. So I was claiming to be the only shampoo that would nourish the living part of the hair. So I was like feeling very like, wow, I'm proud of this. And then it happens that the Elle magazine gave me a cover with Claudia Schiffer, which used to be a very top model around the 90s. And they had no rights to use the magazine in TV. So I basically used the magazine to do a TV commercial that ran in national television. So when the Claudia Schiffer and the manager knew about it, they sued Elle magazine, which obviously an action as a reaction. So Elle wanted to sue Unilever. So one day I arrived at Unilever and I had the shareholders, because Unilever is a partnership of a Portuguese shareholder and a Dutch shareholder, and I was asked to go to the top floor and to talk with them. You can imagine how stressful that situation is. And I was expecting to be fired, a bit like, and actually they did the opposite. They said, listen, I'm really proud of what you did. I'm really, you went the step, you went one step beyond. And I'm really, this is the behavior that we would like others to have. So, we will find a way to sort things out. But I just want you to know that you have the endorsement of the shareholders. And that is like the first story that I would like to tell tonight, because that, I think, inspired my career. I ended up having a purpose, which is be the Jesse James. Jesse James is a guy that in the US no one really knows if he's good or bad. But apparently he's the Robin Hood, the guy that steals money from the rich to give to the poor. That's at least my interpretation. So my purpose is to be the Jesse James that brings the gang along. So basically, I like to be on the edge. I like to play on the edge, but I like to play with the team, supporting with everyone around me. So that ended up to be the purpose, which I discovered 3 years ago. So in an exercise that you go back to the roots, to the things that you did early days. But so I told you a story at the start of my career, and I told you a story like the purpose that I discovered 3 years ago, to be the Jesse James that brings the gang along. But it's a long answer. But I guess the meaning is, don't be afraid, right? So go for it and be yourself, and accept the consequences, whatever those consequences are. Because I was not expecting at all to have that support, and it was 25 years ago, and I remember as if it was yesterday, looking at Van Drager and Soares dos Santos. Those were like the two shareholders, and they approaching me like, we just received this letter, it was with the general counsel, so a very formal room, because over there they share the same room, so they had like a big room. One was sitting in one extreme of the room, the other, and I remember it still today. So I just, I find this very interesting and motivating. Sorry, long answer.
No. I'm going to follow up because Jostein, you mentioned, get ready to be fired today, and that gives you the freedom to do what you think is right. And Nuno, you talk about embracing risk. You also both talk about choosing, the employer that you want to work for. How do you do that? So how can you choose the employer that you work for? What does it mean? How can you understand it? Basically from the interview process, because the last thing you want is to change job every month until somebody keeps hiring you. And humanly, how is it possible to show up at work with that freedom of okay, I may be fired today?
That's a good question. I think when you join an organization today versus back then, the beauty now is transparency has just gone up so much, and you got so many websites. I didn't even know I was scored on it. As a CEO, I was scored on a bunch of different websites, and everybody came to work for us, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got a 97 on whatever." I was like, "On what?" So I think this really helps. There's a lot of transparency in business, at least now. Want to go in with the attitude that you're interviewing them, not the other way around. And three, check them out by getting references and getting people in the organization. But I really think that organizations that do not have a clear set of values, a clear purpose, and a clear set of principles, is going to find it really hard to hire top talent in this knowledge economy that we're going into. So you also see that companies are really stepping it up. Some are trying to fake it till they make it. So those are the ones that you've got to root out. You know, I love the Nuno story and this concept of fear of failure is probably what's holding people back the most. So we talk about purpose, we talk about taking risk. Those all sound really positive, you know, you're leaning in, making things happen, and it's a bit risky. But the fear of failure is what I see as the biggest barrier for individual fulfillment and for success. And at Ben & Jerry's, you know, we have a flavor graveyard where we literally write a little poem and we bury our flops. And we celebrate the failures. And it's very important because if you haven't got a flavor in the flavor graveyard, have you really pushed yourself to do something wacky and crazy that totally flops? So it's the same thing, you know, we had story upon story where people would do things that they thought were really smart. You know, we had a sort of a mini Claudia Schiffer moment with Lynn Sanity for basketball players back in March Madness a few years back. He was a phenomena of the moment, Asian American, and you know, so somebody said, hey, we'll launch a Lynn Sanity flavor in our scoop shop. And it became big, and these poor commentators who are sitting around, you know, commenting on basketball for I don't know how many hours, they got nothing to talk about, so they started talking about the Ben & Jerry's Lynn Sanity flavor. Nobody had talked to Lynn, nobody talked to his agent, so same thing, you know, and I got on the phone right away and I called up the guys and I said, congratulations, well done. I did also say, don't do it again, because, you know, it is actually illegal, but, you know, it's very important as leaders and as organizations that we really embrace failure and create that space.
Nuno?
Yeah. No, I wish I could choose, and I think that's, you know, it happens for a reason. And I would like to tell a story that will probably take a little bit more time, but you will understand, you know, the meaning of it. So when I started working for Unilever, I was at college, and we, you know, the students decided to do a job shop, which was like a fair with multiple companies, so that they could know the students, and the students could also have their first job. So, and I was given, because I was not leading, I was in the commercial team, a friend of mine that is still a big friend, was like the CEO of the team. They said, Nuno, you go and you will sell a job shop stand to Unilever. And I said, listen, I don't want to go and sell to Unilever because I don't want to go and work there. So I was like, you know, I don't have any benefits, so why should I go there? I don't want to go and work for, I want to go and sell to other companies. So I ended up going there, knowing the HR director. I sold the stand, and basically because of that, he invited me to do the internship. So then I did an internship, and it was the only year, probably in the decade, that Unilever decided to have no hiring. So they canceled, they frozen. That year, they used to hire like 15 trainees. That year, they decided, I'm not going to hire anyone. But because I did the internship, the HR guy said, listen, I'm going to get an interview in a selecting, like not a selecting panel, but like I'm going to have you being interviewed. And that was basically the reason why I started that. So basically, serendipity, right? So completely, and then, you know, and the story, when I remember, it goes exactly like that every single time. So then I started there. Afterwards, I was invited by Dominique Chevalier to go to Paris. After 3 years, I went to Paris. I was about to get married, and I was like, kind of like, what shall I do now, right? So I have my father-in-law there in the back. So I was like, what shall I do now? So I'm about to get married, and I'm working in Paris, she's living in Portugal, what shall I do? And then I had my previous boss invited me to go back and have a better job back in Portugal. Then, you know, at a certain time you feel like you know everything, and the Diogo Simões Pereira invited me to do a startup, to be like the marketing director of a startup that never started. So, you know, like I was like feeling like now I'm going to do a big job, and then, you know, the startup did not start until today. It was a mobile phone company, 300 million euros invested, no start. Like, no, we had basically no technology.
Did you celebrate the failure?
Really, kind of, because then my father-in-law, I was working with my father-in-law doing some deals, and you know, he was kind enough to invite me to work with him in a family business. So I still today I feel honored by being considered by him. So we did a joint venture with a license agreement with Umbro. We did some deals, and then I had my Unilever ex-boss approaching me. Are you keen to go and work for me at the brewery, at the main brewery? So with 33 years old, I was basically the CMO of the main brewery in Portugal, which was kind of, and with a bunch of Unilever guys, and we were trying to do a very cool thing because we were like changing the culture. Then Isabel, which was the HR lady, invited me to go to Brazil with Heineken, because we were bought by Heineken, and I went to Brazil. Then in Brazil, I had Alexis that looked at me and said, like, I want you to go to the US. And then I was lucky enough to have Ronnie and Alessandro to invite me to work for Diageo. So, and it's always that encounter. So it's like this last move was, I arrived in Chicago for a convention. I looked at, like, we had dinner the day before. I looked at several tables. You know that feeling, right? When you arrive into a place, where should I have dinner? With what group do I need to, be with? And I saw a table. I went and spent some time with that person, and he was basically looking for someone with beer experience that was keen to stay in the US with a global perspective. So it's really, things happen for a reason. So I did not choose at all. It was basically the consequence of having an encounter, knowing someone, and I can tell you, like, every single person that had an impact. So the question I ask myself is, am I doing the same? So am I looking at the ones around me, and am I spotting those opportunities? And that is, something that I ask every single day. Am I really identifying those individuals that are talented around me that could have opportunities? So that is basically the story that I would like to share. So it was a bit long, but it's 25 years.
That makes sense, and I really like, first of all, the recognition that the fear of failure at work is what holds us back, and I totally recognize that, and that we need to take risk and follow reality. I mean, we need to take risk in following reality, as you did in all the opportunities that you had, and not all the risks paid back. So changing topic slightly, is there anything, or was there a moment where that passion faded? Is there anything that still today, makes you lose that passion? I'll stay with you.
Right. No, I continue to have enormous interest and passion for the things I do. So I feel like today I'm looking for a business that is basically divided in a beer business, which is Guinness, Smirnoff Ice, which is more flavorful beverage, and a restaurant and a brewery in Baltimore, which is more like hospitality type of business. So those are like the three areas. it gives me every single day I go and I work with pleasure, right? So I'm really, really thankful for that. What I feel is like what you said before about the fear. It's obviously a balance between enjoying what you are doing and obviously the fear. Because I have 4 daughters. It's when you think about like if I fail, there's a lot at risk. Will I be asked to go back to Europe? Will I get the visa, like the green card or not? Like I'm still under O1 visa, so there's a lot at stake, right? So you do have the pleasure, that I have every single day. What I feel, and I openly share this with you all, is obviously the fear. What I think to myself is like, that's actually very linked to my purpose. Because that's actually what gives me even more energy to go and explore that, because I like to be confronted with that adrenaline and that sense of, if I fail, what are the consequences, and that gets me more energized. And over our dinner, I was telling a story about like, it's obviously, we have good moments and bad moments, right? So, we have like those moments that everything is great, we are gaining market share, but we also have those months, like, early May, that suddenly, for no reason at all, our sales are not coming. And we are checking the app every day, and, I was supposed to be selling by far more, and I'm not. And those are the moments that you start thinking about, like, not so much the pleasure, but more like the risk, and what about if I don't really make this month? But the beauty is to go back to the essential. Like this is what I like to do. I like it. I embrace it, and I go for it.
I have a few pet peeves. Arrogant people. If I see arrogance around me, I find that. In all levels, I just find that arrogance, and that as sort of one of my things. Bureaucracy is another thing that I can get frustrated with, and people are using processes and things as excuses for just not doing the right thing and getting on with it. Would any of that ever stifle my passion? No. But it definitely nags at me, and when you see it. I'm very sensitive to people who treat others badly, particularly across hierarchy. Again, if I go out for dinner with somebody and to interview somebody or have a dinner about business, if they treat the waiter badly or the waitress badly, it will never work for them. Because everybody should be respected in our company and our organization. So that's the sort of the things that I take very, I get passionate about, that we want to hold that standard. But no, I get challenged and excited about challenges. So when that month comes, I get curious. What are we doing? Who's doing it? What are we going to do about it? And I actually get a little bit of a kick out of it. So it isn't normal maybe, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy that journey. I enjoy the challenge. So it's more of some of those behaviors in big organizations. You can get some of that behavior. That can be frustrating.
So let's come back to purpose. How did you discover your purpose? Discover or build? So do you recognize your purpose? Do you build your purpose? And how do you go about that? How did you go about that?
So we have a very formal process at Heineken. So we went through. We basically trained the management team to go really through a process of going. We had 3 days workshop, and we would go back to our early days and understand like what we used to do when we were young, right? So I used to drive my parents' car without driving license, for instance, right? So, and my mom kind of, Yeah. But my mom knew about it and kind of protected me. But those who do, like, you know, that, and why did I do that? Because I wanted to be like on the edge, the risk, and have that pleasure, which is basically a bit awkward. But you know, but it was reality, right? So I used to do that, and so we did a workshop, like going to really like what are the things that truly give us pleasure, truly we enjoy doing, and you know, and you know, that is basically the reason why I discovered it, right? So I did it, but my mom kind of covered me. So you know, like that was basically the analogy to Jesse James, this kind of. You know, taking the car and walking, because basically what I did was I was parking the car of my parents closer to home. So I was doing something better, good. So that was basically my justification. So I'm helping actually my parents to, you know, next day to have the car nearby the front door, and my mom kind of knew it. So, so that is basically the link to my purpose. Like the Jesse James is the edgy thing. Taking the car, bring the gang along is my mother knew about it. So, but it was actually a very interesting process that we did with almost like 300 people at Heineken, and we had a lot, I mean, like 20 or so, deciding to quit because they were in the wrong place. So they discovered like, oh my, you know, I'm not doing what I was supposed to do. That was kind of not exactly the idea of the training. So when we launched, the idea was not to get like, you know, a handful of people deciding to leave, but was really the signal that was really meaningful.
But beside the process that you followed, how did you recognize that is that? Because I'm sure that there's been a lot of other things in your life that are shaping. So why that?
No, I think it goes back to your heart. You know, like goes back to your, you know, what you really feel energized doing. Like I think, you know, that is what gets me going, and it's like that edgy. So when everything is under control, you know, stable, I don't get energized. I don't get like I don't wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and let's go for it. You know, because it's one kind of lazy and. You know, things are okay, and I like by far more the moments when things are a bit messy, and I need to do something to fix it. And it goes back to your heart, what you feel like. Okay.
Jostein?
Yeah, no, I just maybe start where you left off. I think, you know, everybody has a purpose. It's how you are wired. It's who you are. And what a process can help you do is to name it, to be explicit about it, so that you can leverage it more effectively in your life. But it is there, and the reason you can recognize it is because it's there. It's how you are wired as a human. And it's not, you don't go away for 3 days and then fill in some questionnaires and get challenged by a coach, and then you have your purpose. It will evolve, it will grow, it will, you know. I was actually quite scared of my purpose when I started out, because I felt it was too grandiose, it was too big, you know. You know, I felt like I couldn't really step into it. I was a bit embarrassed about it. And it took me 2 years to fully step into the fact that I really wanted to do things that truly impacted the world, not sell more stuff. But it had to be important for the world. And that, because that's what gets me. That's what really, that really, really gets me. And I had terrible times when I didn't quite know that, and I thought I should be motivated by status or money, or, and I didn't feel excited about it. You know, so understanding that, naming it, and then when you have it, stepping into it and owning it. And I coach an awful lot of young people. Most of them, they know it, it's right in front of them, but they don't want to step into it and step up to it. And that's an exciting moment for me whenever I see people do that. They get there, and then they step into it, and you see the change.
Cool. Last question from me, and then we open from for Q&A. So get ready. So you both work for a public company, okay? And at the end of the quarter, if the results don't come, you know, somebody's going to ask you why. How difficult it is to step up to your purpose, step into your purpose, and stay into your purpose into this difficult moment. Is it really possible? So is it really possible to be ourselves in a public company?
Well, yes. I don't know how much longer will I stay in that public company, but so far so good. The story, another, like the last story of the day, we are launching a product now, you know, like as we speak, which is a hard seltzer, Smirnoff seltzer, which is like 5% alcohol and very low in calories, by the way, very good, like 90 calories, 1 gram of carbs and 0 sugar.
Okay.
Nowadays, sugar is yeah, sugar is the issue, right? No, but and we were, you know, like we were behind, right? So White Claw, I will not mention my competition, but White Claw is really leading the way. Truly is the second brand. We are kind of the third, but very distant. And obviously, you know, following my purpose, I ended up like, we need to go, and like my sales guy is like, we are going to kill it, and the marketing, we are going to kill it twice. And the finance guy, which normally is the one that, oh my goodness, like, no, I'm going to kill it 3 times. And then I went and I said to the board, I need like $40 million. This is going to be huge. Walmart, it just gave us, you know, we had like 1,000 points of distribution. They just gave us like 9,000 points of distribution because we went like from 1 pack to 3 packs in like 4,000 stores. So I was like telling all those stories, like everyone, oh, this guy is going to kill it. And they all, like Eric, my, you know, like the guy that, you know, runs all the breweries, and he was basically bought into my story, and he basically built the stock, and we ended up with $60 million of stock. And then sales, started not coming exactly at the pace, because, you know, Walmart took 2 months more to get, like, you know, to reset, like to authorize us. So it took a bit more time. Then advertising is not like overnight, right? So we started advertising April 22nd, but things do not happen overnight. And then I started having issues in terms of not delivering the sales. So we are still growing 150%, by the way. So it's a very high quality number, but not as much as 250% that we wanted. And listen, growing 150% is declining share. So the conversation at the board level is really, guys, why are you asking us, because our fiscal year ends in July, in June. So why are we going to be exposed to more stock? You know, because I measure by average working capital. So why are you exposing the company to have like $60 million if you could have had like 20? So that's a very public company type of approach. Like, you are not optimizing resources. What I said to them, listen, I know, you know, like, but I still have time, because, you know, like, if things continue this way, I can still cut production in August and September and end up the summer in a good way. But obviously, I'm not optimizing the end of the fiscal, which is obviously what is that, you know, like, the way I managed was being very transparent. It is what it is, guys. You know, like, we are going for it, and we are going to take some risks. And listen, otherwise, if we don't build the stock, we are going to miss the point, like miss the summer, you know, full stop. So we don't even have the chance. You know, like, in order for us to win the lottery, we need to buy the ticket, right? So if you don't buy the ticket, like if you don't participate, you are definitely not going to be having the chance to win. So I think that was the way I managed. It probably didn't land that well. I'm perfectly aware that I have, and I've been very stressed because of that. It's not that I've been sleeping that well. I normally sleep super well. I've been having some nights that I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I'm really not optimizing resources. But things are going, like today we had a good meeting, like everybody understands. And I think the way to do it is to be open, be transparent, and be yourself.
Well, that's good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so we are a $60 billion company with 155,000 employees. The US is the biggest unit in our business. So when the US goes, so goes the company. Our shareholders have a US bias. There's a lot of shareholders sitting right here in New York City, seeing what we're doing and how it's going. We don't have the benefit of losing share when you're growing at 50%. I feel really bad for you. It's a tough market out there. You look at our competitors, Campbell. Actually, if you just look across my industry of food and beverage and indulgences, the average CEO sort of lasts now, it's not more than a couple of years. We're rotating through senior leaders rather quickly. So there's clearly pressure on performance and pressure on delivery. Kraft Heinz lost 28% of their value in one day. Now, they did do a terrible job of managing their shareholders, but even so, losing 28% of the value of the company in one day feels pretty rough. Unilever, we have long-term shareholders. If you want to make $1 on stocks over the next 60 days, you probably won't buy it. You buy, and most of us, it's a longer-term investment. I'm a big shareholder in Unilever. All my comp sits in shares. I treat my decision-making like I'm an owner, which means I will look at the short term and I will look at the long term. And it's our job to tell the story about why, in the long term, we will give you a good return. And there might be a bump on the road, and there's multiple bumps on the road here, I can tell you every day. Our quarter comes to an end in exactly 1 month. Yeah. So, but I think it really is about you can choose how to act, how to react. You can't choose, the events that happen to you. You can do the best you can. So I think that you can absolutely live your purpose. You can absolutely live your values. There are times that you may have to change company in that scenario because things happen. But there is no reason why a public company is worse than a private company. There can be bad money everywhere and bad owners everywhere. So I don't think that's the right distinction. I just think it puts another layer on how you tell your story and how you live your purpose and your organizational purpose.
Thank you. So, questions. So let's open to questions from the public. Anuji. So, want to come out?
So that was great. Thank you very much. I'd love to hear a little bit more about. You guys talked a lot about risk, and most of what I heard about risk was when it worked out. So I'm really curious. Because risk is the other side of risk, right? You take risk and it doesn't work. And if you're the boss, maybe you've got the power to go through it. But I'm curious, what happens when you take risk and it doesn't work? How do you deal with that? How do you,
I can start. Yeah. No, it's always interesting. So I got a $4 billion business. So there's a lot of people, and I would have maybe 20 big bets, and I can afford to fail on 5 of them. Don't know which 5 it's going to be, but I know 5 of them probably won't work out. Now, if you happen to be running one of those 5, that's your whole job. So risk, actually, in my view, we talk a lot about bosses, how they work on risk. Risk actually goes down in the organization and feels much worse in many ways, because you isolate it into cells. So that's why leading for risk is so important in my world, and how I bring those 20 vets together and make sure that if you happen to be on the one that we pushed a little bit too far, I own it, not you. I own it. So those bets I own. And if you win, you win. If you lose, I own it. And that I think is really critical if you want people to step up and step into it with you on that journey. And there is real risk, which is, i.e., the probability of success and move and counter move, and then there is perceived risk. And there's an awful lot of perceived risk, groupthink. People can actually go around and tell each other how tough things are, and then the feeling of risk goes up, which is also why the point about being passionate and enjoying every day and bringing positive energy, positive karma to the organization sort of lowers the perceived risk, and then we can deal with the real risk, which is literally the probability of success. What are the moves you're going to make? And at some point, you just got to get lucky. That's risky.
Yeah. Listen, most of the times you need. The thing is, you need to deal with the consequences. And most of the times you have negative consequences. Like the story I was telling about building the stock and then adjusting the demand and consequently adjusting production. It had an impact because we hired a team in Baltimore because we have this seltzer is brewed out there, and we have we will need to either to reallocate that team or to fire the team because we are basically stopped producing in August and September. So there are consequences to people, there are consequences to yourself, so I did some decisions that had negative consequences to me. The point is more about the life does not end there, right? So, and you need to always go back to why have I done this way, right? So, what is the best way to manage the risk and be aware of it? The reason why I was not sleeping was not because I was not achieving my numbers, it was the consequences. That was basically the reason why how can I now tell the supply guys that I need to adjust production, that's painful. That's really painful. But listen, it's part of the deal. Life is, most of the times, painful moments. But I think those painful moments are as important as the ones that you are having a good moment. Right? So I think it's seeing life as the reality you are confronted with and manage it in the best possible way.
Wait, do you know everybody here?
No. I happen to know
basically ask
20%.
You see the question.
This is how you got the people.
So at the beginning, Ali said that we want unity rather than balance. And I noticed in my work, the more I delve into it and the more seriously I take it, the more it starts bleeding far beyond the 9 to 5 into the rest of my life. And so how do you live your work in a way that's unifying and life-giving rather than life-consuming?
Good question.
Take it.
I tell another story, and so it's probably the last one. So yesterday I was in Chicago. I got late because of the summer storms. I got delayed 3 hours. So I arrived home at 1 o'clock in the morning. 7 hours out. Went to Norwalk, which is an hour driving, and then it was the graduation party of my daughter, my oldest one. And obviously I drove, and when I was about to leave Norwalk office, it was 3:30. I checked the Waze, instead of 1 hour, which was the time I expected, it was 1 hour and a half. So my wife had to go alone. I had to pick up my daughter to take her to the prom. Then I was checking the time because you know, I promised to be here at 8. It's life, right? So my wife was complaining because I arrived at the prom party, pre-prom party, and a guy called me, my sales guy, and I was talking with him, and she was like, you know, can you solve this later? And I think it's such a joy to be able to have everything, but it's not like a straight line. It's not like, oh, it's fantastic at work, and then it's fantastic at home. You know, I have 4 daughters, there's all girls, so 5 girls, 6, you know, yeah, 5 girls at home. It's, you know, my wife and 4 daughters, it's a busy life. There's always something going on. But I guess that's the beauty of it, right? So it's really approach both realities and try to bring everything together and try to, you know, it's one of the things that I brought here to talk to you guys. It's like, that's the beauty of embracing life as life is. You know, I wish I had more time. Actually, when I feel, because during the summer period they go back to Portugal, and I'm kind of alone in New York. And the first weekend is fine, because you do everything that you wanted to do, and you know, but then the second one starts feeling a bit bad, and the third one is like, gosh, I wish they were here, because I found it better to have them around. You know, it's like getting that all embrace both realities.
Yeah, I think it's very important that my perception of unity and bringing it together, and the perception maybe of my wife and kids might not 100% align. But from my perspective, the 9 to 5 disappeared 15, 20 years ago, and it's everything is 24/7. But it doesn't mean that it's 24/7 work, but it bleeds into each other 100%. Now, I love what I do. So when I go home, I'm on the phone to entrepreneurs and coaching them in their startups. When I go on vacation, I'll meet a couple of founders and play with their business plans. When I go to somewhere else, I'll show up at a protest march. I do that for work, I do that privately. It bleeds together. This is what I'm really passionate about. This is how I think I can impact the world. So there is no 9 to 5 or 5 to 10. But it is important that you embrace all aspects of life, your family, your friends, what matters, and then you make the choices. You have to make the choices. You know, there are times when you're in a really, really important business thing, and something happens in your private life. Well, walk out. You know, you gotta get a right hierarchy of decision making, and say, well, I gotta go. I gotta think with the family. And I've not met many people that disrespect that. It feels awkward when you sort of like, actually had one this week. I had to blow off a whole meeting, with a group of people with 10 minutes notice because I had to leave my family. So those are the choice moments. But yeah, 9 to 5, you gotta give up with that.
Right. Any?
Well, I have another question if you don't want to talk.
Sorry?
Do we have time for another
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Oh.
Last one.
Last one. I can just speak.
No, just.
I'm really fascinated about the way that you speak about the need for risk and not to be afraid. I'm not in the business field, I'm in education, but I've been working in education for about 25 years, so it's really fascinating to me to listen to you because I recognize, first of all, the need for students to risk in order to see a fullness of life. But at the same time, being in the field for 25 years, I see more fear in the students, fear of failure, fear in my younger colleagues. I have a young colleague who's just this is her first year teaching, and she's terrified of being fired, but she's terrified. And part of that I think is reasonable because I do think we live in a world, there's more transparency, but there's also, I mean, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have that fear because for a lot of reasons. The context of the world has changed. Transparency is there, but also layers of ideology are there. And there is a real risk of, you know, we're not talking about dollars here, we're talking about, you know, in my field, there's very, I mean, I'll be fired if I'm sued, right? If I'm sued for anything, they will fire me. And so I don't know. I actually my question is about how do you continue to encourage the risk in a context that is different from when we were starting, and in some ways the risk is higher. You know, the consequences are higher. But how do you continue to encourage that risk?
That's a very good question, and thank you for educating our next generation. I think that the picture has shifted enormously. People live their online life of happiness and amazing experiences. And you see people, young people today that would literally go to a party, be registered to be at the party, to, you know, put it on their Facebook and leave. Didn't want to be at the party, but they did. So the pressure is so enormous. And so you have to recognize that as any organization heads, and I come back to the previous point, and this is a point that Brené Brown makes beautifully in her work, but it's so important for us, all organizations, all type of organizations, to create a sense of safety. You know, intellectual safety. And that, because in a world that is so stressed, with so many things coming at you, how we can create an environment where people really feel safe, that they can contribute, they can put their ideas out there, they're not going to be judged, is, I think, skyrocketing. Mental health will be the biggest challenge, the biggest medical challenge, I think, over the next 10 years. And we just got to lean into it. And we have no excuse. It's just like any other challenge. You got to learn, educate yourself, learn about it, get help, get professional help. But for us as leaders of any organization, it's about creating that safe space.
Yeah, just you know, like the desire to really go, you know, with 4 daughters. You can imagine, like my oldest one decided to go back to Portugal to go to the medical school, and I was like, you know, you need to, if you have the chance to stay in the US, stay here. And she was like, oh, Dad, but that's exactly what I want, and so on and so forth. So then I lost the battle there. But you know, like, she's taking a risk. You know, like, who knows what will happen, right? Will she get adapted to the situation? But what I said to her is, listen, it's better for you to take the decision and then, you know, regret about the consequences than really not taking the decision, right? And staying because she's afraid of the decision to miss an experience or, you know, like, who knows? Like, I think it's more like that desire to embrace life, and at the end of the day, you know, she can always come back and she can always find another way. You know, like, back to how I started, like, the purpose is the path of life. Who knows? Like, probably it's the start of, you know, like, the dots are not connected all in a straight line, right? So probably she goes out to Portugal, it's the worst decision, and then she decides to come back, and when she comes back, she's a different person. You know, like in your example, if you are sued, you know, you get fired, but who knows if that would trigger another opportunity. It's more like, you know, we cannot control our lives. If we feel that we can control our lives, we are completely mistaken. It's, who knows what will happen? Who knows if tomorrow the guy will say to me, "You're working at, you know, like the stock was too high and you are fired." Who knows? But at least I did what I thought was the right thing. So
I want to add something also to what Jostein said about creating an environment which is safe. And I think the only way for us to do it is to be authentic. Because I realize that, I mean, dealing with a lot of people, you know, it's impossible to be perceived by everybody in the same way, okay? So to make everybody feel comfortable, etc., etc. Because I've got my personality, and some people may be more, you know, at ease with my personality. Some people may be more less at ease with my personality. But I think in all this, either I try and manipulate myself to try and keep everybody happy and make everybody feel safe, etc., etc. But in all that, I think the important thing is showing authenticity. I don't know, Jostein, if you agree with this, but I think authenticity is what really makes people in time feel safe. Maybe not at the beginning, because authenticity sometimes can be rough. Because if I'm myself, I'm myself, okay? And people may not like it, but in time, people understand who I am. People understand the authenticity, and they will feel more safe to be who they are as well. Last question?
Oh, Angela.
Angelo. Oh, we may take another one.
Another one. I heard that nowadays, if a corporation does not have a clear culture, clear value, cannot attract top talent. So, how would you define top talent? And second question, you work in large organizations. Not everybody that you deal with is a top talent by definition, otherwise it's an average. Okay. So, the vast majority of us, including myself, are not top talent, and they have to get up in the morning, go to work, and be passionate about them. So, how do you deal with the people that they perceive that are not top talent? Because that could be very problematic, okay, and frustrating. But instead, I think that the ideal culture in a corporation is when everybody can be themselves and can give his own contribution, 5, 10, 5 million. So
That's a good question.
thank you.
It's a top talent question.
Yeah, that's a top talent. No, you know, so I think it's very important. You know, successful companies recognize that teams with differences, teams with diverse, that bring different perspectives and different skills, are the teams that really succeed. So the word top talent should not be interpreted as it's a forced ranking of talent. I think every human being has an opportunity to contribute incredible value to the organization. They might not be in the right chair at the right time, and we might have to do a little, you know, shoveling around on the deck. You know, you go to Ben & Jerry's, I had people who were self-taught. They'd never, ever, they just, you know, 1988, if you had a pulse, Ben & Jerry would hire you. Growing like crazy, it was literally, yeah, got a pulse, you're hired. The CMO was hired in 1988. He's, you know, he's been with the company, he's now the chief marketing officer of the company. I always tell the story when he's in the room because, you know, makes him feel good. But the point is, differences, different perspectives, and then unlock the potential in each human. You will get incredible results. So I think the old definition of top talent, you go and you do this sort of a formulaic thing where you score and you do this and you do your MBA, that doesn't really work anymore. The world is moving too fast. It's a mix between here and arms and heart. And I actually said, lead with your heart, engage your brain as quickly as you can once you felt the right thing, and then get your hands in there and actually do something, because the world is moving quickly. So, so that's, hope that answered your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Very well done. Very well.
So let's cover quickly the last one.
Can't believe people are asking questions at 9:15 on a Friday.
Okay, thank you so much. You really inspire me to follow my dreams. I'm not from here, you can notice my accent. And now I'm looking for a job, and those companies are my dream company, so I'm not going to even...
There you go. You got your resume in your hand.
She has a pulse.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my question. As Jostein mentioned, you know, young people, they don't really step into the work purpose. And do you think millennials are not committed to stay for a long time in the same company or the same job position?
So every generation like to complain about the next generation. And there's always a mixture of jealousy of the people that are younger than you and judgment. So I think that there are no formulas or millennials versus boomers or Gen X, or I think this, you know, I think stepping into your purpose can drive you in multiple directions about where you choose to work and how long you choose to stay there. I've had my moments, you know, when you get a young person that you have to train, and it usually takes about a year. If they quit on you after a year, you sort of feel, you know. But at the same time, hence, you got to build the training so you get the value quickly. And again, it's back to the previous question, is how do you unlock and get contributions while learning? I think the days when people will stay for life at a company are probably over. I think though, you know, if there's a whole other topic, is the future of work, automation and artificial intelligence. But let's just face it, most of the jobs you can imagine today won't be there in 10 years. But there will be other jobs. So I would stay very agile, and I will be willing to learn new things every day.
Listen, it's my biggest challenge. I have like people with 18 months that are asking to be the vice president of this and vice president of that, which I would love, because that demonstrates ambition and desire, right? When I think more about it, and I talk with you know, the ones that joined recently, often is that like desire to have something more. But there's also a void with that, right? So they feel like they have emptiness, which is a bit scary, because then it becomes like, you know, that should not be the reason of their lives, right? So they always are looking forward and longing for something else tomorrow. And like I did 18 months, not even 2 cycles. Huh? So a cycle and a half, and I want to be promoted. And if you guys don't promote me, I go and look for an opportunity elsewhere. But that's like given. You know, like, and what I try to say to them is, listen, but you know, you should not be dependent from that, you know, that promotion, right? So you should enjoy what you are doing, right? So otherwise you are just like looking for one promotion after the other, and then you go from this company to the next, and you are like, you spend all your life looking and trying to get something that you never really get, but they don't get it. So they don't really. It's an interesting topic. I think, you know, like if you go really deep and try to see the perspective of you know, your generation, and it's really how to balance. There are the nice things about like going faster and conquering the world, with also some sense of stability and understanding life with perspective. That's my point.
Thank you. So we're going to close here. Jostein, Nuno, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.